Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolebarger and welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update, the week of February 2nd. I want to make sure I make this an announcement right up front. This will be the last week for kind of till about mid-May for YouTube videos that accompany the PDF PowerPoint. We'll be leaving for Israel on on February 5th, and it's harder to upload there than our home office, but we will continue to do Middle East updates on a weekly basis while we're in Israel. We'll post them to our website, again, holygroundexplorations.com. And in fact, go there right now, because for this presentation this week, there's always more information on the PDF PowerPoints than the time that we have in our YouTube presentations. So keep that in mind. Let's jump right into this week. And we usually talk about, what are we covering in the very first part of this, our headlines. There's going to be articles on the situation in Syria and Lebanon. Netanyahu met with Putin this last week. Danny Danon's going to talk to the UN Security Council. There's an article about cyber attacks through Hezbollah, the incitement and the craziness that's taking place with the Palestinian Authority, whether it be Fatah or Hamas. We've got 2 or 3 different articles on that. The rise of anti-Semitism today in Europe, as well as specifically Germany, as well as Poland. And then, of course, we have the State of the Union comments from Trump, and then our quotable quotes for this week. So as far as headlines go, Netanyahu is wanting to make it very clear to who's ever listening, primarily this week to Russia and the US, that Iran is turning Lebanon into a giant missile site that's aimed at Israel. And if this continues, Israel will have to take matters into their own hands. Once again, he's going to elaborate on the situation in Syria. He told Putin on Monday that if Iran continues to try to entrench itself in Syria, that his quote says, "If it doesn't stop by itself, we will stop it." So there's an article on that. As I mentioned, Danny Danon's meeting with the Security Council. He kind of gives the nuts and bolts as far as the figures. He says today there are 82,000 fighters under Iran's authority in Syria. Whether they're members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, or whether it's the Hezbollah, or whether it's just Shia militants, he's warning the Security Council that Iran's intentions in Syria are to destabilize and to set up a presence, and Israel will not allow that to take place. An article, as I've mentioned, on what's going on in Syria today. And then we have this whole issue in Poland concerning the Holocaust. Israel's called on Poland to amend a bill that was approved last week, or this week in fact, that would make it illegal to suggest Poland bore any responsibility for crimes against humanity committed by Nazi Germany on its soil. The Prime Minister has basically said that if you use phrases like Polish death camps, that will be punishable by up to 3 years in prison. He's suggesting, and this is where it's getting very crazy, he wants to remove that concept of the Poles being responsible for any of this, and actually commented that since the Jews ran the crematorium at Birkenau, maybe we should just refer to Auschwitz and Birkenau as Jewish death camps. Well, as you can imagine, the sensitivity of this in Israel is sort of boiling over, and it's kind of going back and forth, and we'll see where it lands. But it's unfortunate. But it does give credence to the fact that we're seeing more and more anti-Semitism in Europe. And there's an article from a Holocaust survivor here regarding Germany. I'll let you look at that on your own. And then a concern that we have with our ministry, since so much of it uses the internet, is that Hezbollah, there's an article that basically says, is going on the cyber offensive with Iran's help. We know in the past that Hezbollah has long used the internet to give recruitment information, propaganda, or whatever, but now it appears that it is proactively seeking to develop this cyber capabilities, expanding its potential disruptive and influential reach into the digital sphere. In other words, they're hacking a lot of different sites. And because our site, Holy Ground Explorations, deals primarily with taking people to Israel, I know we're not a big target, but if you ever get something from Holy Ground that seems really pretty wacko, please let us know, because it is a concern. And I think it's going to be a growing concern with the abilities for organizations to hack different sites. And then, as I mentioned, the craziness of what's taking place with the Palestinians, Palestinian Authority, Fatah, Hamas, etc., the incitement. You know, Palestinian incitement against the U.S., it seems to have reached new heights. They've never been what we'd call friends of the U.S., but the past few weeks have revealed the extent that they truly loathe Americans. You know, the whole thing with the effigies of hanging Trump and burning the flags and all of that sort of thing. It just seems to be ramping up more and more. And I think it's important to realize that despite these threats and incitements, we take them extremely seriously. In fact, asking for your prayers, because as I mentioned, we'll be in Israel kind of from now until mid-May. And we've got various groups, and a significant amount being Americans, of course. And so we just like you to pray for protection in regards to all of this. But it's important to note that we can't allow this intimidation to keep us from doing what God's called us to do. It's important to take people to Israel that they can see with their own eyes, hear with their own ears, kind of the Israel of the Bible as well as the Israel today. And if we give in to intimidation, let me tell you, it's quite clear. There'll just be more and more and more of it. The threats of violence and more threats, it's the way of the Palestinians, and we cannot yield to that. So as I mentioned, there's a couple articles that you'll find in the PDF concerning this. State of the Union, I thought it was interesting that when Trump made the statement that he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, that he went on to say that he is going to Congress to pass legislation to help ensure that American foreign assistance dollars always serve American interests and only go to friends of America, not enemies of America. And as you know, last week we reported on the withholding of the traditional funds that have gone out to Palestinian refugees. And Trump's statement is basically, hey, you're not going to throw us under the bus and just take our money. You need to show that your friends of America are willing to negotiate peace or whatever, or will withhold. So we'll have to wait and see how this all pans out. But it was noteworthy that he included it in the State of the Union. And so that's kind of the gist of our update for this week. Again, there's much more that you can read about that I mentioned on our website, Holy Ground Explorations. One last thing, we're excited to announce a brand new tour that's going to be this fall, October 9th through the 18th. We call it Off the Beaten Path. It's limited in numbers. It's kind of geared to people that have been to Israel already, but we're going to do some incredible things. We're going to Shechem this year as far as Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim. We're going to have behind the scenes at David City as well as Yad Vashem. I could go on and on. but I don't have the time. If you want more information before we post this publicly, email me and just say, give me more information about Off the Beaten Path. My email address, are you ready? dan@hgexplorations.com. Email me and I'll send you a flyer concerning that. So with that, let me wish you a Shabbat Shalom for this upcoming weekend. And also remember us in your prayers as we are blessed to go to the land where it all began on Monday and be there for quite some time. God bless you all.